Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Professional Development Webinar Series presented by the Mahwah Regional Chamber of Commerce. Today's webinar is sponsored by R&D Legal Bookkeeping. They manage your business finances so you can focus on increasing your bottom line. There are additional sponsorships available for members to sponsor future webinars. Today's webinar is about aligning technology with your strategic plan, being presented by Full Circle Solutions, an IT services company here in Mahwah. My name is Benny Mulvaney. I'm joined by Nate Kaufman, and today we're going to talk about aligning technology with your strategic plan. The objectives of our webinar this morning are to provide you with a roadmap of proven business technology assessment requirements. We're going to communicate IT assessment best practices and discuss pertinent technology that enables you to run your business. One of the key words in this slide is assessment. Let's check it out. As we get started, I think it's critical for everyone to understand that every company, like a snowflake, has a unique IT requirements that demand unique IT solutions. Well, why is that? Every business is set up differently. Their objectives vary, but frankly, their resources vary. Their current state conditions, what kind of IT network environment and equipment that they have running are different, and their future state may vary depending on what their target is. What are they trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis in their business? So as we look to clients and perform technology assessments, the first thing is to bridge that gap and perform an assessment. So today's webinar is really focused on what are the key elements that you need to look at when trying to bridge that gap. How do you perform a best practices technology assessment? What we find that works well is using 12 different items for proven technology assessments. We are going to talk about each one of these in detail with a slide or two. So let's continue. The first category we look at in a technology assessment is looking at the asset inventory that a client has in their network environment. You'd be surprised how many customers don't know how many PCs or workstations do they have. How about servers? What about switching and cabling equipment, wireless equipment, their firewalls and gateways? How about printers and copiers and output devices? The reality is many customers don't have this accurately and correctly ongoing. So our recommendation here is to maintain a real-time asset inventory for the company's IT infrastructure. It'll play an important role as we continue to look at the next 11 items. The next thing we believe everyone should assess is their local and wide area network design and configuration. What does that mean? It's looking at their network setup. What is their IP, their Internet Protocol, and subnet addressing and reservation policy? How are they handling their switching and routing equipment? How do they set up their firewall and gateway configurations? Are they using one internet service provider or a direct Ethernet carrier or multiple? How are they handling remote users? Are they using a virtual private network, otherwise known as a VPN? And how are they handling wireless configurations? Our recommendation as you go to assess your network design is to design and maintain a LAN and WAN infrastructure that's based on industry best practices. In this category, we would spend a lot of time discussing the best practices. The next category that we would talk about and want to do an assessment is your data backup and disaster recovery. Well, what does that mean? Here we start talking about things like the cloud, right, where we assess your company's current backup solution. Do you have data that's on PCs only, on a file server? Is that server being backed up? Is it being backed up just on premise, or is it also being backed up in the cloud? The key is identifying companies' mission-critical data and intellectual property. Often, some of that gets backed up on-premise, and only some of that gets backed up in the cloud. In order to determine that, you look at the company's acceptable threshold for downtime and interruption. If you were to have a power outage or a network connection problem, would you be able to restore immediately from the cloud versus how long could you wait if certain data was not backed up in the cloud? Those are key elements that there's answers that are different for every company. how much of your mission-critical data needs to be backed up. So our recommendation is to consider cloud-based backup and disaster recovery solutions that are suited to your business. There is no one best practice. The next element that we look at for an assessment is network and data security, where we look to assess the current antivirus software solution. We'll look at internal security hardware configurations. We discuss the company's need for content filtering and application control, where we talk about what users have permission to access what types of files, folders on shared drives, etc. We determine company data permissions and identify file permission structures. And finally, we identify internal and external company data security risks. Are people able to hack in? What are the easiest ways for them, and are we blocking them properly? So our recommendation is to establish and maintain needed hardware and software security provisions to make sure you accomplish your security needs. The next thing we talk about are line of business applications. Now, what are these? Oftentimes, you'll hear people call them, refer to them as LOBs. And in each different vertical market, you may find a law firm is using a special application that's designed for law firms. In the construction industry, there's certain software designed for them. In many different vertical markets, there's software specific to running your business that may be different than, let's say, QuickBooks or an accounting package that's used by all different type of financial departments within companies. So as we look at your line of business applications, we identify the software applications that you're running and what your needs are. We assess the needed software integration requirements. Is everything tied together? Are there pieces you're not using and they're not working together properly? We determine the infrastructure requirements to adequately support the use of these applications, and we really look at performing software licensing audits. When you have a certain number of users using those, we want to make sure that you are licensed properly for that, so when you call those companies for support, you're able to get that support. Line of business applications are critically important to understanding everybody's business and running your business. We know that while we're not experts in every line of business application, getting them to work and support them properly in your environment is critical. So our recommendation is to ensure that mission-critical lines of business applications are up to date, adequately licensed, and performing to plan. Next, we'll talk about assessing your office communications strategy. What does this mean? Here, we're talking about things like email and phone. So as we look at phone, we look to assess your company's requirements and current solutions. Are you using a plain old telephone system, what people refer to as a POTS line, or are you using voice over IP or a digital phone solution? Are you using on-premise solutions, or are you using a hosted or cloud-based solution? Lots of different things to choose from, and understanding what your needs are and the workflow of your phone usage would we help recommend based on your assessment. Similarly, we look at determining a company use policy for your email. Are you using things like Microsoft Exchange? Do you have an Exchange server on site, or are you using a cloud-based system? There is no right or wrong answer. We often get questions about, should I host my own email or host it in the cloud? The answer is there is no one right answer. It's determined based on your needs, your requirements, your resources, etc. So we recommend that you consider feature-rich and often cost savings cloud solutions in your communication strategy, but not always. Many times you will find that on-premise is the best for you. We also look at assessing your mobile user requirements. This is a big trend, and you hear it in the market. Bring your own device, BYOD. How is your company handling people bringing their smartphones, their tablets, or clients coming into your offices and coming on your network? And what's your IT infrastructure's ability to support a bring your own device trend? We like to help clients determine the security and reliability of their current wireless and virtual private network, their VPN solutions, to support a bring your own device environment. So it's so prevalent these days, we recommend that you establish and maintain a secure wireless and remote connection capabilities that will support ongoing and future bring your own device requirements. We talked earlier about an asset inventory, and that's quite different than looking at an IT infrastructure documentation. It's amazing how often we go to clients, and as they start to ask questions about best practices in IT services, we ask them, do you have an infrastructure or network topology? Clients look at us and not sure what we mean, and we say, do you have in words or in a map form a company infrastructure document that says, here's what's in my environment and here's the role of that in my environment. Take your server rack, for example. Clients who have 3 or 4 servers, one may be a domain controller, one may be a file server, one may be your Exchange server. Knowing what the roles and responsibilities of each of those pieces of hardware in your infrastructure are. Their credentials, their domains. Do they filter websites? Are they for network admins? Do they host line of business applications? It's important to know what's on every one of those devices in your network, what their roles and responsibilities are, and create an infrastructure topology. So we recommend establishing and maintaining an up-to-date IT infrastructure topology and resource documents. Sometimes it's not in map form. Sometimes it's just written so that you know what each role of the pieces of your environment do. So when somebody comes in to help, or when there's turnover in your IT staff, they don't need to figure it all out. It's documented. Similarly, there are IT policies and procedures that when you call on corporate America and the Fortune 1000, certainly they have these procedures. As we look at small, medium businesses, often this gets overlooked, and it's a really important piece of doing your IT assessment. We help clients identify their IT policy and procedures and requirements. We help them create and write them. We like to assess the company's current state policies and procedures, which may not be there. What do these include? Things like your acceptable use policy, backup and disaster and recovery policy. Our recommendation is to establish and maintain sound IT policies and procedures. I'm seeing a few questions coming in, and I think at this point we're almost done with the slides. We'll continue and then go back to Q&A. So one of the other things that we look to assess is a client's ongoing support and management policy. Who's fixing broken hardware and or software issues? We look at system monitoring and management needs. Do you have somebody that's doing proactive management or reactive? They get a call and they need to go and fix something. We help clients assess their help desk and service management. Tracking, are they tracking tickets? What are the reporting requirements? Oftentimes people will say, well, I have a printer that broke, I'll just go and buy a new one. Are there better and smarter ways for all of your hardware assets for ongoing support and management, for break fix? So our recommendation is to establish and maintain a proactive support and management practice, whether you do it on a self-performance basis or outsource it to an IT services company. There are so many proactive tools to help identify upcoming threats rather than reactively fixing things after they've already happened. So now we'll switch gears a little bit and we'll talk about something called electronic document management. Now what is this? It's typically taking paper-based workflows and saying, how can we reduce paper in our office? We've all heard of the paperless office in the past. I don't think anybody's there, and I'm not sure we ever will be. But how do we reduce the amount of paper we use and potentially look at creating electronic workflows? Whether your document management system is software-based on a server in your environment or somewhere in the cloud. What we're looking at scanning, indexing, archiving, and retrieving, and looking at workflows that support that. So within an electronic document management system, again, you're typically, as we're doing an assessment, we're identifying the need for one. Are you a business that has filing cabinets full of documents? Do you have those white file boxes sitting in your hallways? Are there all kinds of forms management where your printers are putting 5 copies of the same thing, one that goes to accounts receivable, one that goes to shipping, one that goes to the customer to sign, etc.? There are electronic document management solutions that help streamline that and save money. We also perform discovery analysis, again, for scan, index, archive, and retrieval workflows. It's not just saving something to a file server, it's saving it with the correct intelligence that you can then go and search and find it easily. So our recommendation is to look to replace existing paper-intensive workflows into enterprise-wide solutions that allow sharing amongst multiple departments with a document management system. Again, one of the things that we talked about in the asset inventory was your document output devices, your printers and your copiers and your scanners and your faxes. So in order to implement a document management or print management program, we need to understand and do an assessment of your current state devices. How many devices do you have? How much do they print? Are they printing black and white and color? What size paper do you use? It's only then can clients look to right-size their environment of saying, how do I move from high-cost output devices like personal printers to low-cost output devices, usually your big network printers and copiers, in order to reduce your total cost of printing. So within a document output strategy, we believe clients need to assess their current state fleet of devices and design an optimized solution that may talk about asset consolidation. Rather than having everybody having their own personal printer, perhaps there should be some network devices and or copiers that everybody prints to those, with rules-based printing, where you might say, rather than printing 50-page documents to a small printer, they automatically get rerouted to a copier where the cost per page is lower. So we look at implementing solutions that will provide an immediate return on investment. We believe that clients today, with all the tools out there, should be managing their devices with a web-based software application that, again, allows for proactive management of their fleet, not reactively fixing broken things. So our recommendation is to consider fleet-wide managed print services programs, typically based on a cost per print rather than a cost per toner cartridge, which gives you predictable cost management for service and supplies. As we look to put it all together, we believe that in order to align technology with your strategic plan, it all starts with a comprehensive technology assessment. You've heard that word on almost every slide. There is no one right answer. It's only after you assess your environment that you conduct an on-site inspection and discovery with each specific company's business requirements. It's not just your infrastructure. It's what do you do as a company and what are your requirements? What do you need to support going forward? We compare your current state infrastructure versus best practices and what you need in the future state and bridge that gap. We typically want to help build things for scalability, security, redundancy, and reliability, and there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that on many different budgets. So this is the process of aligning technology with your strategic plan. It's taking your business processes and your technology and putting them together. Again, this has been presented by Full Circle Solutions Group. Our tagline is aligning technology with your strategic plan. This professional webinar series is offered to members only and will be posted on mahwah.com for future viewing. For more information, please call the Chamber office at the number listed below. At this point, we'd love to open it up for questions that I believe that you can type down in the left-hand corner of your screen. Here's the first question that we have. It says for smaller businesses, how much IT documentation is really required?
It's all a little bit relative. If you're small, it depends upon what you classify yourself as a small business. And if you're classifying yourself as a one-user small business, obviously we still want to have documentation, but it's just not quite elaborate as there's not as many devices to have. But once you start getting into the 3-user, 5-user, 10-user, you have a server involved, having documentation along with how your asset inventory and even acceptable use policies is important. It just does not take as long to produce that documentation, just based on the amount of devices that are there to analyze. But it's still important. Small businesses still run into the same issues with employees, with viruses, with attacks, with things like that, or even if they're switching from vendor to vendor, as we've seen that in the past too, where a small business may have a computer guy. That computer guy eventually becomes, maybe he moves on and does something else, or they fire him, and the next IT company that comes in, you're going to spend redundant time, redundant money as that person tries to figure out your network, how it was set up, why it was set up that way, what applications you use. So it really is important to have documentation about what your infrastructure is, once you start getting, 3, 5, 10, and above computers along that line.
Thanks, Nate. Here's another question that's come in via the portal, where it talks about, do we recommend online commercial backup vendors like Carbonite? Are they secure?
Yeah, there's tons of solutions in this space, and specifically Carbonite, they've been around for a long time. The big key there is when we analyze the type, there's ones that are very inexpensive, and there are ones that move up the chain. It all depends upon what's your environment and what your applications are, especially if you have an Exchange server on site. We analyze those, and there's typically better solutions as you go up the chain. The other thing we also analyze in that case would be the amounts of data, and this is a huge thing, is how much data do you have? Because if let's say you have 50 gigs or 100 gigs or above data, and if you go with a pure online backup solution that all of your data is in the cloud and there's not any local device involved, if your system crashes, can you afford to wait for a couple days as that data is downloaded back off the internet to be rebuilt? And quite frankly, is it just bringing back data, or is it going to reinstall your operating system on your PC or on your server? And a lot of the least expensive ones will handle your data okay, but if you had to rebuild your server, you got to start from scratch and then download your data. So those are some of the things we talk about and find the right solution based on an individual need.
One of the other questions that we hear often, because it's been going on for quite some time now, is Microsoft and the discontinuation of support with XP. So, Nate, can you talk a little bit about what's going on with XP?
Sure, we'll do that. And I see we have some more questions coming in too, and we'll get to them all. The one thing that, if everyone's aware, is Microsoft has discontinued the support for the XP operating system. Now, it's been around for a long, long time, and it still has a huge install base in the marketplace. But it is being discontinued. It has been formally discontinued. I believe it starts in April. What does that mean to you as a business owner? And what it means is that they will no longer produce security updates and patches to that operating system. And they've been patching that software since the day it was born. So what it will do is it will open you up to the potential for hacks into your system. The other thing that's going to happen also, your line of business applications, your antivirus software applications, all of your future applications, as those are being updated, you'll run into a point of time, and that could be tomorrow, that could be 6 months from now, but they will no longer support that operating system, and because they're moving forward with their design of their application, and they will not take the time to be backwards compatible to an older operating system that's no longer supported by Microsoft. So if you have not made a plan to move off of XP, it definitely needs to be on your immediate short-term. Action needs to be taken very shortly on that.
Hey, we have another question that came in off the portal, where it says, Microsoft keeps getting me to switch to their Office 365 product. Is cloud-based software safe to use? Isn't it full of bugs that they want web users to find? Can you talk about that, please?
Microsoft Office 365 is a unique animal. And what happens really there is what they're trying to do is get you to subscribe to a monthly or quarterly or annual fee to use their software. what it really is you're not really online with the software. What they do is you have the ability to download a local copy of Microsoft Office that is constantly checking to the cloud. Have you paid up? Have you paid up? Have you paid up? Now, they do have online storage of local files that you produce, but the application is actually downloaded to your local machine. So from a security standpoint, you're okay because you have it local, you're not running it off the cloud. What you're doing with the 365 strategy is, low monthly cost to use the software rather than going out and having to buy a brand new version of Office for a couple $100. And this way you're paying a low monthly cost, and as Microsoft releases new versions of that software, you get those automatically. So it's a hybrid solution from a cloud-based. It's really a subscription. It's not a bad solution in a lot of cases. Again, I run into tons of small businesses who, when they're buying a machine, they're buying it for a 5-year time period. Anymore, it seems like, hey, I'll just buy the Office at that time, and I'll run that version of Office until the day this PC needs to be replaced. So, some people have that mentality. Other people, I want the latest and greatest all the time, and therefore I'll subscribe to a 365 type product from an Office standpoint. So it's cloud-based software, safe to use. Anything, as we've seen with everything all the reports we've seen out of the government and all that stuff over the last, 6 months or year or whatever, nothing is 100% perfect in the cloud, just as like nothing's 100% perfect into your internal network. But a lot of applications are very safe to use in the cloud. We're seeing a lot of specific vertical usages of cloud-based applications. So there's a whole strategy there that we talk about with clients to find out what type of cloud-based application you're looking for. Let's analyze that if it's the right solution to throw to the cloud versus having a local local copy of that software. So it's all relative, and it's a definitely good conversation to have based upon what you're trying to get out of it.
Nate, one of the other questions that we get a lot is related to cloud storage. Can you talk about software as a service? What is it, and why are clients using it?
Well, what we've been seeing over the last several years is software as a service, and what that is essentially cloud-based applications that you're essentially renting on a monthly basis. No local footprint to your local network, to your local PC. It's entirely off the web. We're seeing some ramp up in that, where specifically in specialty needs. I need a time card entry application so my employees can enter their payroll time from the field. I need an expense report application so we can collect our employees' expenses from the field. Email is another one where we want to have Exchange hosted in the cloud. So cloud is a lot of different things. Cloud's just not one thing. It's typically what we're seeing is enhancement applications that it's easier because I need it mobile. I need to get to it from anywhere, and I don't want to buy and manage an application local. I just want to subscribe and rent it essentially on a monthly fee. So there's a lot of different things. Cloud's just not one thing. It's multiple things and multiple applications that people try to enhance their operating system, enhance their utilization internally at a cheaper rate because it's monthly fee versus having to buy a full application and maybe find a server to throw it on.
Thanks, Nate. There was another question that came in from a member regarding print services, actually. Was asking about color printing specifically, and how do you know when you go to a Staples or an online store, should I be buying the low-cost inkjet printer that typically has very expensive ink refills? Do I buy a more expensive color laser printer, which also has expensive cartridges when I need to refill them or buy new ones. What's the best solution? Right? Is there a best practices? You know, typically the rule of thumb in a print device is the more expensive a device costs, the lower the cost to operate, the lower the cost per page. When you look at the price, I often get people coming to me saying, wow, did you see the price of those ink cartridges or for those toner cartridges? I could have bought a whole new printer. Well, a whole new printer would also come with warranty, so while that may be good, the amount of toner that you get with a brand new printer is usually a starter cartridge. So what clients need to look at doing and users need to look at doing is you look at the cost of a cartridge and you look at the yield that it says that that will give you, and you look at what are your projected cost per page. That's how you know, am I paying 10 cents a page, 50 cents a page, $1 a page? Now that's something that's coverage dependent, meaning am I printing, you know, Excel, pages and bar graphs and charts? Am I printing full color, photographs? The more coverage you put on a piece of paper, the more it costs to print that. That's where clients who are doing a lot of color printing really save money by going to a managed print services solution, even if it's just on one printer. They say, hey, I want to acquire a new device and I want to pay per page rather than per cartridge, so that you can look at saying, I know my fixed cost per page regardless of coverage, and on a color laser printer that's always a lot less expensive than on a personal inkjet printer. I think we're at the point where I don't see any other questions coming in. I'll give folks another minute or two to submit something. I hope you found this webinar useful and valuable. I appreciate you joining. I think just as a quick wrap-up, the key for us as we look to align technology with your strategic plan is, again, looking at, first of all, your strategic plan. Every company's strategic plan, what they do, how they do it, and what they need to support those efforts. We look to align technology with your strategic plan that is designed to support your current needs, your future needs, based on your budget. How do we accomplish what you're trying to do safely, securely, robustly, scalably, etc.? So that's how we look at aligning technology with your strategic plan. Again, this is Benny Mulvaney from Full Circle Solutions. Should you have any more questions, feel free to submit them to the chamber, and we'll get back to you. Thank you for joining, and have a good day.